there's 10 crucial things that we've learned about selling on Amazon that we want to teach you so you don't make the same mistakes. So I've been selling for about 2 years and I have one product on Amazon that's done over $1 million in sales. And about a year ago, I taught my girlfriend how to sell on Amazon as well. And together, we've learned a lot of really valuable lessons, made a lot of mistakes. And like I said, we want to make sure you don't make the same mistakes. The first thing we want to talk about, the first mistake we made, all that kind of stuff, is that it's actually really expensive to start Amazon, especially if you do it wrong. So you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so depending on what your product is going to be, it can be upwards to about $10,000 just to start your product. And for me, for Vino cards, it was about $12,000.
Yeah, and one of the ways that you can mitigate this is by running a Kickstarter, which is the way I did it, the way I taught Ariana to do it as well. But let's quickly go over some of the costs, because a lot of people don't know about all the hidden costs associated with starting up. So what were some of the biggest costs for you?
Yeah, so the biggest one was buying units from the manufacturer.
Buying the physical product itself.
The physical product, and I bought 2,000 units, and that equaled about $10,000. So that was the largest cost.
And as a quick side note, it was kind of a mistake, I think, for us to buy 2,000 units.
It was a little too much. I would have preferred it to be maybe 1,500, probably
1,000.
even 1,000.
1,000 units would have been better.
Yeah, but regardless, we have all of that, and we're gonna sell it. But $10,000 just on the units. And then from that, you have to pay the shipping costs, you have to pay for the design of the product, and then people to review, or at least I hired a sommelier through Upwork to review my product. I didn't want there to be any mistakes as far as spelling or information I'm giving.
And every product's gonna have different startup costs depending on exactly what the product is, but those are some of the big ones that you're going to encounter. I mean, getting a DBA also, lots of little random things that people don't normally talk about.
And especially if you're manufacturing in China, there is a lot of little fees that will accumulate.
A bond, it's $400 for a bond, so you can send it across sea. So the next point that I wanted to talk about, and I think one of the lessons I learned, is there's multiple ways to sell on Amazon. There's 4 main different types of business models on Amazon, 4 different ways to find products, and each one has a different startup cost associated with it. There's retail arbitrage, wholesale, private labeling, and creating your own product. Now, retail arbitrage, there's not a lot of startup cost with, and then it kind of goes up from there. But the good thing about creating your own product, which obviously we both did, is that you can run a Kickstarter, which helps you raise a lot of money. And if you do it right, you won't actually need to put any of your own money in. There's almost no startup costs because you raised it all via Kickstarter.
Yeah, the great thing about Kickstarter, it doesn't cost any money to just put your product on there and see if people respond to it positively. If it's getting really good responses, you can communicate with those people who did back it for you and see how it can be improved. And there's just a lot of benefits through using that platform.
Another one of the benefits is you'll get an idea of how much demand is there for your product. How do people actually want it, which leads to point number 3, and that's don't go out of stock on Amazon. I've got a horror story, but I'll let Ariana talk a little bit about this.
It's so important to keep track of how much you're selling per day on Amazon, and just be mindful that if you're going to be running out of inventory in about a month, maybe start, sending in some inventory, get that number up just in case, or worst case, if you're running out of units altogether, you need to communicate with your manufacturer and get that ball rolling.
Yeah, so you need to do inventory planning, figure out exactly how much you have in your parents' garage, your warehouse, wherever you're storing, your closet, wherever you're storing stuff. Make sure you order ahead of time. I ran out of inventory. Luckily, it was only for a few days and it didn't affect my sales. But I've had friends and I've known a lot of people that they ran out of inventory on a product for a few weeks, and Amazon basically blacklisted them, or at least blacklisted that product, and it never was able to sell as well as it did before. And the next thing I want to talk about is Amazon fees. I think a lot of people that are new, they don't realize how much Amazon actually takes, and they take a huge chunk. They take about a total of 33% of your sales, which means if you have $1,000 in sales, they're taking over $300 in fees. And there's a few main fees that they take, and one of them is 15% flat rate. No matter what, they're taking 15% of your sale, whether you're using FBA or FBM, fulfilled by merchant. And a lot of people want to do fulfilled by merchant. They want to ship it themselves, but I think as Ariana, don't do that.
Yeah, I think it's been so nice to even be able to go on vacation and not worry about having to send the product myself. I think it's a better customer experience when Amazon's handling it in 2 days.
Yeah, we're in Sayulita, Mexico right now, which I love. It's a great hippie surf yoga town. And right now, I don't have to worry about shipping out my inventory. It's in Amazon's warehouse and they're taking care of it. So even though they do charge about 15% fees for just selling on their platform, and then it's another, it depends on what the weight of the product is, it's about another 15% for both of our products to do fulfilled by Amazon. It is worth it 100% because not only are they doing the shipping for you, but it's also like a marketing platform. It's so much easier to sell products on Amazon than it is anywhere else. So the next lesson, and we've both learned this lesson, but Ariana's conquered this lesson. She's done a much better job than me, is Mastermind.
Yes, so like Travis said, there's gonna be complications, as you've already heard, with Amazon in general. So that's why it's so important to have a group of people that are selling on Amazon as well, whether they've sold for a while or if they're beginners. For me, I put together a group of women who are selling on Amazon for the first time this year, and we're going through the obstacles together. And that is so important to share and to feel comforted by the fact that we're not alone in this, that there are gonna be crazy things that come up and you're gonna get stressed, but to have someone to talk it through and maybe them to share advice with you is 100% worth it.
You need people along with you you don't need it, but it makes it so much easier. If you have friends, allies, and I think Ariana did a much better job at this. Like, I think a lot of guys, I know I have this mentality, a lot of guys are like, I want to be the lone wolf. I want to go conquer this by myself. And I quit my job about 7 years, it's crazy, about 7 years ago to start my first e-commerce store. And I was determined, I'm going to do this by myself. I don't need anyone's help. And I struggled for a long time. And then I started getting friends in the e-commerce space, and they all started telling me, hey, Amazon's a lot easier. And eventually, a while later, I listened to them and I launched my first real Amazon product. And within 2 months, I had hit my goal of hitting $300 a day passive income, which that was the goal I had when I quit my corporate job. So Mastermind, I think it's extremely important. Another lesson though, is Amazon's hard. I don't want to be one of those people on the internet that just tells you Amazon is completely easy and it's just the easiest money you'll ever make. It's not. I mean, want to talk about some of the work and like some of the struggles?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of things, like a lot of work that you have to put in the beginning to have it go live on Amazon. And then after that, you're not going to see a profit until a little while. I mean, you have to reinvest and just, yeah.
It's a lot of hard work to it. And I think even now, like Ariana, when she was designing Vino cards, I told her there's going to be mistakes on it. And she didn't believe me. She's like, no, I've proofread this so many times. And then when it launched, there was mistakes. But here's the thing about entrepreneurship, about selling on Amazon, it improves you as a person. Like I've watched Ariana grow over this last year because she's had to conquer these challenges, and it sounds almost cliche, but I've learned so much about who I am as a person and become just, I don't know, I think an overall around better person. So let's take a step back and get away from the meta and instead talk about air shipping versus sea shipping. So a little bit more tactical. What are your thoughts on air shipping versus sea shipping?
So if you have a lot of time, sea shipping is great because it can take about a month or so for that product to arrive to...
At least a month or so. Sometimes it's longer, so keep that in mind.
It really depends, but from China to LA, for example, it took about a month or so. Air shipping, far more expensive. Although you'd get it within the week most of the time, it is almost double the price than what it would be for sea shipping.
Yeah, and there's some other factors to keep in mind because with sea shipping, there's chances that it can get caught up in the port. So even if they tell you it's only going to take 4, 5, 6 weeks, there's a chance that customs, for whatever reason, slows it down. So this is one of those things people always get hung up on, and they think that shipping from China is going to be like this really hard thing.
It's very simple. You just need a few documents to allow like the product to go easily through customs and all of that, and you can find all of that online.
Oh, you hired someone to do most of it, which is really cheap.
And they just have you sign a few things and you can go over it if you're worried. But yeah, it's really important to factor in the differences in cost. Also, if you have very fragile products, I wouldn't necessarily recommend air shipping unless that's the only thing that you can do. But air shipping can cause more damages, which is what happened to my product. And so we had to double box it and everything, but sea shipping is a lot safer. for the product.
So we've got 3 more lessons, and I'm gonna go through them really rapidly. Number 8 is just cash flow versus profit. I'm just gonna burst everyone's bubble. I've talked about this on so many videos, and there's 2 elements to this. One, the amount of sales someone has isn't their profit. For instance, I'm just gonna make up the numbers, $30,000 in revenue in a month, but actually only end up with $10,000 profit. But even that profit doesn't go into my pocket. I have to reinvest that into inventory. And that's what Ariana was kind of talking about earlier, is once you see that you're gonna be running out of inventory in 2 months or 3 months, maybe even, it's time to call up China and order more product. The next thing, Ariana will talk about this, seller support on Amazon is terrible.
Yeah, if you have a major issue, don't expect to get it resolved in a timely manner. You have to constantly call and make sure that they're understanding the issue and the best solution for it. But it requires a lot of calls, sometimes a lot of emails back and forth. And if you call again, if you don't get it resolved in the first call, you get a different person, which means then you have to re-explain the whole situation. It becomes a very long, tiring process.
And I've had some issues, like recently I sent in 2 pallets of my product, and Amazon basically said, oh, sorry, we only received 1, which is BS. I know for sure that they received both. I've also had issues where I have some inventory that's been stranded for 6 months. I'm trying to get them to dispose of it, and they're still charging me. Basically, I had some jars that the jars went bad, and I said, okay, throw them out. And they're like, oh, sorry, we can't. It's in this weird limbo state. And so they're charging me every month. With all this being said, my final lesson is get a mentor.
And Travis has been my mentor for this whole journey.
And I've watched Ariana grow, and I think that she definitely could have done it by herself, but she got fast-tracked to making pretty good success. She was just recently able to quit her job and do Amazon full-time. Yeah. And I think if you would have done that by yourself, it's just, when I first quit my job, it was a terrible experience because I didn't have anyone telling me which way to go, and it was like being dropped in the middle of the ocean and I had no idea which way to swim. A mentor basically says, hey, swim that way. It's still gonna be hard work. It's still you're still gonna have to do the effort, but at least
mistakes are inevitable.
It's 100% inevitable.
Minimized.
Yeah, and you're gonna learn from them, and they're gonna help tell you how you can grow from this.
We did a complete step-by-step guide for selling on Amazon and posted it to Ariana's YouTube channel. And you can get that video for free by clicking right here. It's basically my entire Amazon FBA course condensed down into 30 minutes. And I did this so you will check out Ariana's YouTube channel, trying to get you over there. So click on that video and we'll see you in the next video.
Thanks, guys.